with devotion to God. I align myself, then I tap my forehead. I align myself to God's message, and I devote myself to what God wants me to do. And with this full alignment, I now proceed my day. Now, when we do that, we actually get into that heart frequency. And this is what today is all about. Today is all about attuning ourselves to, again, what the prophets have said, and then what science is seeing every day, and how that's all coming together. And that's why in this moment where everything is coming together, we start seeing that we're in such a unique spot in life where everything is transcending together. Everything is integrating together in showing what is really, really happening in the world, and how we need to reunite today more than ever before. Why we need to really get into our hearts, and why our hearts need to be the leaders and not the minds. So let's get into it. So with devotion to the mission, what we want to do is we want to now start paying attention to what is the science saying regarding our hearts. Now let's have a look at this. The first thing to happen before we're born, the first thing to happen before anything happens, is there's a spark. Okay, there's this, and actually seeing there's this white flash that happens. Now, if you really start asking yourself that, what is that spark? Where is that coming from? Okay, now that's pretty amazing. Now that's the first frequency in which we're born in. So we're born in a frequency. So when we say we're born in a frequency, this is an amazing code that frequency is now in a cell, and that cell turns into more cells, and then the first organ to appear is the heart. Now, when you start thinking about that, the first organ to appear is the heart. That spark, that code, that first frequency in which we are now communicating to the world is now wrapped up in our heart. Now, that's pretty special. So therefore, scientifically, we lead through the heart. Now, if you've done any research from the prophets from day 0 to now, okay, they all say there's something in your heart. That's where I felt it in my heart. You've got to listen to your heart. Now, Jesus also said you've got to align with your heart to listen to God. They're all saying this is where it comes from. So when we're going through a massive rupture, so what happens is that our mind starts to rip away, that this identity that we created to get through life, to protect us through life, we never needed that. We built it from the conditioning of fear. We built it from the conditioning of I need to create my own identity and so forth. However, when that ruptures, when the frequency speaks louder and louder, and the mind starts to rupture, this voice, and it's not a normal voice. It's not like this chattering in your head. Okay, it's a resonance. It has no words or sounds, or it has a resonance. That's the first thing to appear. I like to call it a rumble. Right? This rumble starts to it. So this frequency starts to really, really take on board, because frequency is more than words. It's more than sounds. It's more than pictures. These things develop once you let this amazing, amazing communication. This communication is heavenly. It's purely the communication that God has given us from day one. And if we want access to that, we need to stay in that frequency. The only way that you're going to communicate with God, as in listen, tune in. I'm not talking about the asking, because that's always there. The listening part is always there. But us tuning in, us paying attention, us taking that full responsibility of tuning into that frequency, we're the only ones who are responsible for that. Nobody else can actually teach you to tell you this is what it sounds like, this is what it feels like, because it's unique to you, just like it's unique to your fingerprint is unique to you. This communication is unique to you, and it needs to be unique to you, because your mission is very different to my mission. Your mission is different to anybody else's mission. And this is where I like to say that you are the missing piece. You are the missing piece, just like I am the missing piece to God's architecture. Okay, God's architecture of heaven on earth has been there since the beginning. It was always there. It always is here and always will be. However, it's up to us to pay attention to that, take it on board, and now devote. And this is where, we don't need to have self-esteem. We don't need to have any of that, because once you tune into it, and once you take on board of it, and once you obey it, you have more strength than anything the mind can conjure up. So the mind cannot conjure up self-esteem. The mind can't conjure up identity. The mind can't conjure up all these things. It becomes this fake it till you make it scenario. And you've heard this before from a lot of people, fake it till you make it. You don't fake it when you go straight through that resonance and you live through the resonance. And this is how it becomes so solid. Okay, this is how it becomes so solid. And this is where every prophet has gone through this. And each and every one of us is not any different. The only difference that makes between a prophet and everybody else is that they tuned in, they totally obeyed, and they went through it. And they actually went through that command that they had, and nothing could stop them. Nothing could stop them. See, for everybody else that wasn't tuned in, it made no sense. Everybody's like, these guys are weird. Okay? And that's what happens. You actually become weird. That people can't understand you in most times. Okay? However, you don't really care about that. All you really care about is being able to resonate with them. And then sometimes what happens, a lot of people that say they don't make sense what's going on, they're still drawn to you. They know that you're not malice, they know they're not, but they're drawn to you. The only times they're not drawn to you is because they're so misaligned. They are completely detached to their mission. They're completely detached to, and they're just leading their life through their minds. I don't know about you guys, but there's so many times that I let my mind become, lead through the crown of my mind. I didn't put the crown in my heart. And when that happens, we stray. We go all over the place. We're trying to build this persona, and everything is about, I need to build my identity. I need to, how does this person do it? How does that person do it? And the thing is, it was already in us. So this is where we need to be finely attuned. Now, I'm not sure, you've probably heard stories of prophets going into the mountains. They had to be by themselves, alone. Okay, not listening to, because what you need to do is they needed to get rid of all the noise. Okay. And you even hear it today. How many people have said, I had to go to the Himalayas, I had to go to the mountains by myself to find myself. It's not because they were in the mountains, it's because what happens when you clear the noise, when everything is away from you, guess what's left? What's left now is your resonance. What's left now is that pure frequency that was given to you, your mission, your true identity. It's a frequency, and that frequency, and let me explain by you what frequency is, because this is where science has really now proven. Okay, this is an amazing thing. A lot of the times, the scientists that were proving this didn't know what they were proving at the time. And this is the great thing about this is the pure science, is that they come from curiosity to find out what is going on, not come with pretense that we've got to find out how this doesn't work, or we've got to find out how what I say works. It's a curiosity, no ego. Okay, and the ego part, I'd like to talk about that. Ego is your mind leading. Okay, you build this persona to protect the inner self that you haven't nurtured. Okay, a lot of practitioners will say we're doing inner child work. Okay, what you're really doing there, if you really look into the heart, again to the heart, when you look at the heart of things, you're tuning into this amazing resonance. All the tools, everything that you needed was right in here and is here right now. So therefore, what's happening with science, as I was saying before, is that it's now showing how this first thing is this frequency, and it expands around you. And this is a really, really important point. For 5 meters or more. So the frequency, this is how we look, the way we see things, the way we hear things. I've said it last week as well, but the way we see things through frequency. It's light waves. When we hear things, what are we hearing? We're hearing sound waves. So whenever we're experiencing the world, okay, that world you may think is coming towards you. But what's happening is that your brain sees it through the frequency in which it's emitting. And the first frequency that emits is the heart showing that when we're infants, that you recognize your mum, you recognize dad, you recognize this is where I have to go for food. You recognize things without even your mind, because your mind doesn't know, your mind hasn't developed yet. Okay, and because the mind hasn't developed yet, we go through that initial frequency. Now let's go back to that initial frequency. It starts in the heart. Then the next thing to develop is the central nervous system. That's the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves. Okay, this is how important our nerves are, because our nerves are now the transmitters to the rest of the body. This is why if someone severs their spine, okay, or they have some kind of interference in their spine, they can have functional problems. Okay, and I'm just very grateful to have I was led to doing a profession called neurospinalogy. It just showed, how amazingly intricate the central nervous system is. But this cascades, that first divine frequency is now implanted. So your brain is like this supercomputer. Now this code is now, and this is where we call it the unconscious mind. Okay, we call it the unconscious mind, is now implanted in the brain, so the brain can keep that code going to the rest of the body. It's pretty amazing. Like this stuff, and for anyone tuning in, there is, like, if you think you're an accident, this This amazing structure does not get made by accident. It just makes no sense. But the more science gets into it and how intricate it is, the more mind blowing this is. This is and this frequency. If you really think about, when science starts looking at, well, where's this frequency coming from? Okay, we start seeing that, well, it's a frequency that was always there. Before time itself, it was always there. So it had this amazing coding is in every single one of us. This architecture is in every single one of us. Now, if you really think about that and how awesome that is, you can never be alone in this world. The only time that you're alone is when you're not tuned in. The only time that you're alone. You can be with so many people and still feel lonely and still feel alone because you're not tuned in. Or you can be on your own, by yourself, on the top of a mountain and in total bliss because you're connected. You're connected to everything that is, everything in this universe. You're going to be connected. And rightly so, because you're not just part of a universe, you're part of an architecture here on Earth. And therefore, we need to start paying attention to what is my true responsibility here. See, when we obey this frequency, and this is, when we say obey, this is what it is, okay? It's not someone coming in with a stick, right, trying to smash you into oblivion. Okay, it's not it. Okay, obeying is really tuning in, paying attention to this frequency that's all around you, that's coming from here. So when you pay attention to that frequency, and you hear it, you've probably said it to yourself: "I need to follow my heart. I need to, when my heart's saying something and my mind's saying something else." Because the mind, you builds this persona out of fear, especially out of fear. Okay, out of, I want to fit in, I want to follow the trend, I want to get distracted with the next reel. Okay, I've been there. We've all been there, right? Because there's a human quality. Okay, and that human quality needs to be, and there's a reason why we have a human quality. We were built this way from a creator for a reason, because we need to interact with Earth. Okay, we need to interact with all this amazing things on Earth so we can build the architecture. We're responsible for that. See, the thing is, a lot of people misinterpret. Keep reading. Reading is so important, so important. But we misinterpret things. We misinterpret when we're reading through the mind. Okay, when we're reading through our mind, we misinterpret, because now this frequency that default frequency becomes mistuned when our mind puts its fear on it, when our mind puts its limiting beliefs on it, when our mind puts different traditions and cultural things that we are misinterpreting as well. It puts it onto this frequency. Then what does a brain see? Because remember, the brain cascades. Initially, the brain just had the frequency of the heart. Okay, so the mind's job is to go out, pay attention to this frequency, and get all the tools that it needs, learn the skills, learn the behaviors that it needs, so it can build this on Earth. Okay, that's why we're physical beings. If it didn't, if we could just do it through the frequency and just stop here, things would just build themselves. But as you can see, this is not the characteristic of how we do things here on Earth. The way we do things is that we need to go through the behaviors. So as the mind does that, we can be, that mind can influence the brain by putting limiting beliefs. Like we might do stuff as we're growing up, and it might not come together the way we want it. We get frustrated and we come up with a limiting belief. See, I can't do it. The person over here did it. I can't do it. So now we put a limiting beliefs on ourselves. So what do we see in the field? How does our frequency field change? It changes dramatically. So imagine 20 years of this, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Imagine all this stuff just, creating static in our original divine architecture. We're not going to be seeing heaven on earth. We're going to be building something else. Okay. And sometimes we are guided by our hearts, but the mind can get in the way, and it builds something that's a little bit misaligned. Or you have built an amazing architecture, but because you're building it through a misaligned program, you still feel empty inside. And I want to talk about that. I'm quite sure, I've been there, not many times, but I've been in certain moments where I felt empty and completely misunderstood, and I didn't know what to do. Okay. And if you ever feel empty inside, there's a lot of people that do. In fact, there's a lot of leaders in this world that are just empty. And this is what we mean by empty. Okay. So every cell in the body needs to be fulfilled with this divine architecture. It needs to be led by the heart. When we lead through our heart and our heart floods us, what happens now is that we're completely full. And when we are moving forward and building our architecture, it can be something as small as a little Lego thing, or a little shack instead of a mansion, and we feel fulfilled because we're filled through. We're filled through the Spirit. Okay, it fulfills us. The Holy Spirit that we've been given right here is filling every single cell of the body. When, unfortunately, we don't do that, and the mind covers that up, okay, we're just, I like to call it here, we're walking zombies now. We're completely starved of the Spirit. So what happens when someone is starved of the Spirit? They have to go out there and take whatever they can. And it doesn't matter how many things, how much money, how much anything that we have, it's not prosperous now. Okay. And this is where we can get, into people can look greedy. And it's because they can never be fulfilled. So we don't want to just look at it at the surface structure. This is a greedy person. Well, let's go beyond that. Being ambassadors, I'm quite sure that people are here like to call you other seekers or ambassadors, or you've got this calling. Our responsibility is to go beyond this frequency that we're seeing of limiting beliefs, okay? Because this is a big thing about us, is that every human has this divine frequency going through them. It's in their heart. A lot of humans, and we've been there, are lost. And we lose ourselves when we lose that frequency over the darkness that we've put over it. We lose it. And therefore, when someone is a high-performing human, okay, when they're high-performing humans, they're motivated so much that they don't, they're motivated so much because they want to fulfill God's destiny, which is heaven on earth, our architecture. Or they're highly motivated because they don't want to feel this darkness inside, and they want to do whatever it takes to try and get rid of it. Okay. And what can seem prosperous and greed almost looks equivalent. A prosperous person, they come to be able to do things to make a lot of fruit. Okay, when we say make a lot of fruit, they're using their skills. They're using all their things to build empires, to build things, but they're building to bear fruit for everybody else to enjoy. When you come from a dark place, when you come from trying to get everything out of the way and get this darkness out of the way, you're trying to take. So you're not building fruit for others to bear. You're building things to be more just profitable. And the thing is, the divine architecture, you end up having way more if you follow it and you build it. You have way more prosperity, because prosperity fills us in every category, not just profits. Okay, it builds us because we're coming from a place where people are grateful of the things that you've built, and now they can go out there and build their heaven on earth, and their heaven on earth is going to now help somebody else out because they want that service, and it just becomes this ripple effect. However, if our leaders come from a place where it's take for the sake of profits, this is not prosperity. Because now people have no means to bear their fruit. They have to rely on their fruit. That's not bearing fruit. Because how is it building ours? And this is where more than ever today, more than ever than the history, right now we all have to tune into this divine frequency, because we want leaders to emerge in this way. So we want now people to be able to get into the corporate world. Now, I'm quite sure some people tuning in are in the corporate world. Some people aren't, and that's fine. But or people have got this calling that they need to be in that arena. But if we can get divine architecture activators, as I like to call it, is that people that can actually they've activated their heart. They can really see that they've activated their whole body with this divine frequency. Now they can become consultants to leaders and help them reconnect to this architecture. Imagine what we can do for not just this generation. Imagine what we can do for generations to come. You know what? A lot of people will say, Alex, that's a pipe dream. However, this is my calling in regards to God's architecture. So for me, that misaligned, missing belief is not something that resonates with me. What resonates with me is that mission. And remember, every single person that stood out in history, they stood out because they were weird. They stood out because they had a mission that nobody else could understand. However, I believe that more and more people are waking up spiritually. More and more people are connecting all around the world, through internet and social media, are waking up more and more. And this is where we mean by, we are waking up. What does waking up mean? We become activated from that divine frequency. Now activates in every single cell of the body. Nothing else makes sense anymore. Nothing else makes sense anymore. I want you to think about that. And this is this is how things change in an instant. This is where people have said they've been touched by God, they've been touched by Jesus, they've been, and that's the only thing that can explain. And you know what? If you think about it, that makes total sense, because this exactly is what happened. Is that you got to a place in life that you just break down. You're on your knees, and you're calling up. You're calling out. Where are you? Help me. Okay, God, where are you? Jesus help me. We get on our knees and we're not blaspheming. We actually are now really, really calling out. I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. I need this help. And then what happens is that the rupture starts. Okay, this is something that I've gone through to another level. And the rupture starts so much so that the mind makes no sense anymore. What you created in your mind, you start seeing is that, wow, it's come from places that are unrecognizable in the divine frequency. Okay. It's unrecognizable in the divine frequency. And I love for you guys to share your stories, of going through rupture. And if you're going through this right now, that would be so cool to know of the ones that are going through this right now, because wow, there's so many people in this point, in this moment, that are going through a massive rupture, and it can look messy. Okay, it can look like you're crying, you're in the corner, you've had enough of this life or identity that has been built through the mind, that has been built through limiting beliefs, negative emotions, that have been built through other people's frequencies, misaligned frequencies. So, and the great thing about this, though, is that the divine frequency, that never, ever, ever gets ruptured. Okay? As long as you're here on Earth, you can live through this. I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about the way you see other people, because it's not this message is not for how you see other people. It's about what you are doing right now with yourself. Are you paying attention to divine magnificence, God's architecture? See, there are no complaints in that. There are only opportunities to express the architecture. If you catch yourself complaining, you know that this is your mind, this is not your heart. Your heart can feel the hurt. It can feel how the misalignment works, but it won't complain, because your heart is the architecture. Okay, and you're guided. So emotions that we have inside us is a guidance system. It's not something you live your life from. So if you can sense, when someone does something actually hurts the architecture, you don't come now from hurt. It just shows you, hey, if you go down that path that person has now shown you, it'll take you down a distorted path. And this is where a lot of people will just feel the hurt, and instead of learning from the hurt on how to deal with that, so their architecture can be, you're completely aligned with your architecture, you start becoming misaligned. And then we start blaming other people for making us hurt, or making us feel angry, or making us feel all sorts of things. And that's all that is misalignment. It was feedback for you. It was a mirror for you, that to be able to build this architecture, you need to build a certain strength. Because there's so many people that are misaligned out there, your architecture is here to help them and help millions of people to come, because it's not just for your generation. It's about thinking generationally. The ecology of humanity, where is it going? If I don't build this architecture, if I don't take full responsibility of this, Number one, now that you are aware of God's plan for you, that you're here to build an architecture, the number one thing we want to do is tune into what that is. That's all you got to do. You don't have to concoct it up with your mind or anything like that. It's been with you from day one, and a lot of the times we know what it is, but what we do is we keep pushing it down. Taking responsibility over that and just going through life through that. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be challenged. As I said, you're going to be coming with all sorts of people that are misaligned to the architecture because they don't know it. They can't see what you're seeing. So we need to build the strength to be able to communicate with all types of different frequencies out there. We need to come from that place of curiosity to find out where they're coming from. What are they trying to build? Is it coherent to our project or not? Because a lot of the times, different projects need different people. That person, you can have two divine beings building architecture, and they see that, hang on a second, well, we're not building the same building. They're building over there, we're building over here, but it's part of, you can start seeing that you're part of the same architecture. You can start seeing that we all have the same intentions, but a lot of the times when we're doing all the bricks and mortar, okay, and we're totally focused on what we need to do, sometimes we don't recognize that that person just right next to us is also part of the higher, bigger picture. Okay, and we all are part of that higher, bigger picture. Now, when you come from that heart, it'll be easier to see when someone's misaligned and when someone isn't, because you come from the curiosity. You don't have to get triggered anymore by emotions, limiting beliefs, or anything like that. You can start seeing the mirror. So, okay, well, this person's not part of my architecture. This person needs guidance. And when you come from that, we're also here to guide people through that, because we become that person. We become this person that's always meant to lead the architecture. And leaders are here to help others activate their architecture as well, not shut them down. So if you ever get to a point where you're doing that, obviously there's, when you're going through the rupture, some old stuff is still knocking on the door. Okay, we can be, our minds can be quite stubborn, because what happens is that we built this whole neurological being, and it's solidified in I call it the mind paradigm. It's solidified in this paradigm. So what you want to do is, the more you actually focus on your purpose, you'll start seeing it clearly that, hang on a second, I've now been went into that old paradigm of that limiting belief, and so therefore, we need to realign my frequency back to the divine. Okay, and that's something that we need people that also are going to be doing that. And this is not coaching. Okay, this is not coaching at all. Okay, this is divine architecture activators. Okay, we want to always help people go into their divine architecture, the divine frequency. The more we can help people go to that, the more we can help. And there's a lot of the techniques that we've used just to help the mind. Okay, now I've been doing something called NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy since 2000 as a trainer. I was doing some hypnotherapy from the age of 12 when I saw a hypnotherapist to help me with the fear of dogs after a dog bit me. Okay, when I was 12. The story goes, we were on our way to McDonald's, and the dog saw a McDonald's of their own. Okay, so anyway, after that process, I was using a lot of this stuff to help with my mind going through things. Okay, and my relationship with God was always great, even as a kid. I was born into a Catholic system, and where most things I heard were hypocritical until I did my research, and I just spoke to the priests and to the nuns and to the monks and things like that, and their message was very different to what the congregation was saying. And you probably heard me say that last week. So it's about really building into this world what this unique frequency, what this unique communication, this unique mission that you have here on earth is. You need to build it. Your mind needs to build through that. And the mind can claim that crown. Because now the mind, once the mind is built from that kingdom. Okay, that's the true kingdom, because now what we're doing is we're bringing the kingdom of God into heaven. This is not for later. This is not, I'm just going to sacrifice my mission and go to heaven later. This is where we've been, so many people, not everyone, but so many people have completely misinterpreted that. It's like, I'll sacrifice everything now, okay, including their mission. Like, wow. Including their mission, including their responsibilities of bringing this mission out to the world, and I'll have and heaven will come later. It's like, wow, we've missed that message. God has given this to you. Don't give it back to God. A lot of people say, I'll give it to God, but God has implanted it in you. The communication with God is there 24/7 and never stops. The frequency is always on. It's only you that switches off. Okay, it's only you that switches off. So no different to any frequency in the world. The reason why we can actually have radio stations, internet, TV stations and things like that is because us as humans have discovered frequency. It's not because it wasn't there. It was always there. These frequencies were always there. Now I'm live streaming on my phone, on my laptop for YouTube, on my phone for TikTok. I'm live streaming through frequencies that are going to your devices. It's not because these frequencies were invented by us. We discovered them, and we discovered how to utilize them. But can you see that every single resource we need is already here? But if it comes from a misaligned place, we can misuse these tools. If it comes from a divine place, imagine what every human can create coming from a divine frequency, coming from their original divine architecture. Can you even fathom what that could look like? We could use our imagination, but the thing is, our imagination can't even fathom. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to nature and I'm on a cliff and you see this amazing architecture that was already there before we even came, and you're in awe, thinking, wow, this is absolutely amazing. Now you're part of that architecture. Now, if you get yourself misaligned with that, you're going to create some pretty crazy stuff. And we have, as humans, we've created some pretty crazy things. So if you think about it, there's two pathways. There's the aligned one, and then there's the misaligned one. The aligned one and the misaligned one. The misaligned can take you to all sorts of dark places, you get attracted to all sorts of things. The aligned path is purely obeying that frequency that was Just like perfect health was already implanted in our heart, but we messed that up with all these chemical concoctions that we've come up with, thinking that the body wasn't perfect. And now the repercussions on this generation and next generation and so forth becomes dire. And we blame it on genetics. Okay. Now the thing is, the genetic coding that we've had, we can go on forever for this one. Okay, was perfect. Our physical being, with all these misaligned projects that we've done, can become pretty dire. We've seen it. You can see it around how there's a lot of misaligned effects, and we need to get on top of this. We really do. So medicine can become an amazing thing if it's led by aligned people, not misaligned people. Our food source. Now, you've probably seen it. How much misalignment there is in our food industry. Now, if we can get more divine architectural activators out there to be able to help in these industries, and someone who's divinely in a mission of divine isn't here to go out and beat these people up. We're here to help them. We're here to be able to communicate at all levels, all sorts of different levels. And if you go into your divine, you'll start seeing how you can easily communicate with all levels, because you're not going to be now mistuned. You're not going to be derived from your pathway, because you're going with God. And I remember just recently, it was about a year or two ago, when I was a little bit off my mission. And I remember the vision that I had, and this massive communication from God saying, you have to go out and do this. And this massive, beautiful golden wrapping was around me, saying, I have got you. You cannot be harmed with me. Do the mission. I have you. I always had you. You're here. After everything you've gone through, you're here. I've always had you. But now you need to embrace me as I embrace you. Sorry, I'm starting to get teary here because of how deep that was. It was deep because it was coming from in here, and all this other stuff that was built around it was all fake. Embrace me as I have embraced you. Wow. Okay, and I'm not the only one. No, I'm going through a spiritual experience, a human going through a spiritual experience, a spiritual activation experience. Okay, because we were always spirit. That's the first thing we were. Placed in here and developed this amazing thing called human. Okay, we called it human, but this amazing thing, which was the projection. Okay, God's reflection. We call it God's reflection. Yes, it's the reflection, the frequency. It was already perfect. We didn't need to mess it up. The architecture on Earth was amazing. All the nutrients we had was already perfect. But what happened is that we thought it wasn't, because we became misaligned and we messed it up. Okay. And this is where you are enough. But the true you, not the mind version of you, not the fake version of you, not the version of you that wants to go on with these crazy trends and all this stuff. The true you, that is enough. It's not more than enough, and it's not less than enough. It's enough. It's perfect. Okay, when you go through your mind, you always have to look for perfection. And it can never be perfect. Remember, a perfectionist can never, ever be perfect. Okay, unless they're coming from that divine architecture. They come from that divine architecture. They're going to build through that perfection. And nobody else is going to understand what that needs to look like. Only they can. And then they attract people in their lives that are going to be part of that architecture. Okay, but when you're coming from the mind of perfection instead of the divine perfection that's already inside, we mess things up. We really mess things up. Okay? And the thing is, to build from divine, you'll start seeing things that you've never seen before. You'll start attracting people that you've never attracted before. A lot of people will be come out of your life that were misaligned in the first place and weren't part of this project. Okay, so you've got to welcome it in regards to what the frequency is attracting, because frequency, electromagnetic frequencies are what's happening out there. We see it, we hear it, and we attract, and we attracted to things. Okay, electromagnetic frequency, it's not something we invented, it's something that was always there. We're just recognizing it now. We're recognizing it now. This is how the spirit interacts in human form. Okay, science and spirit are like this. The misaligned can't see it. But when you become divinely aligned, it's so obvious. It's actually so inspiring how, regardless of how misaligned we are, the spirit is always there. It's always coming through. It's always pushing through. It's always there to communicate with us. And when you're aligned and you're seeing it, you're actually seeing it come through misaligned. And we're here to help them along the way. We're here to help them along the way. A lot of people are not ready for it, and that's fine. Okay. But the ones that are ready for it, they will appear. They will appear. So this is it's amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive. It really, really is. And if anyone felt anything during this transmission, please get in contact. Stay tuned. Now, I'll be doing this same time every week, and we'll be talking more and more about what other prophets have gone through, or just normal everyday people have gone through. Okay, in regards to going through that rupture. And if you align to your heart, your communication with God becomes so solid. I can't even express it in words on how aligned that communication, that it's the loudest thing. Like, noise just doesn't get in the way of it. However, it's so vital that you do quieten down the noises around you and quieten down and have that time between you and the divine frequency, so you can really tune in to the architecture. It always was there, always is there, and always will be there. Okay. Love to you all. Thank you for tuning in. I really do. A lot of blessings. Now, I don't really need to give you my blessing, because you've got God's blessing inside you that's way greater than any blessing that anyone can give you, because it's pure. So, with the hand in your heart, may you be devoted to God's mission. Tapping your mind, and I align myself now to God's mission. Hand in the heart, devotion. And we do this when we're devoted, we're always tapping our hearts. Okay. Devotion to God's mission. I align myself to that mission. And now I activate the mission. And the way we like to activate the mission, God's given this amazing thing to us called breath. Okay. So if anyone's had any inspiration of seeing a glimpse of their architecture, or they can really see this amazing architecture coming through them right now, okay, let's do this. So I want you to really pay attention to that architecture that you were born to create on earth. Okay. Now, as you see that architecture, as you see your mission, again, hand in your heart, from devotion to God's mission, to God's architecture. I now align myself with this mission. Now, taking a deep breath in. As you breathe out, you tell yourself, I now activate that seed that was given to me to every cell of the body. Let's breathe that out. Let's do it 2 more times. Breathing in and activate. 1 more time, breathing in and out. Awesome. Waking up every morning, devoting yourself to God's mission. Your life will never be the same. Thank you once again. If you'd like to help us on our mission, as you can see, all our transmissions are free. We're never going to be asking, you never have to pay for these services. However, if you feel inclined to give back to our mission and help our mission go out globally, there are ways to do that. There's a link on my bio that you can go to, so you can register, and then it takes you to an honorarium page. And if you'd like to give to our mission, I would be more than grateful. Okay, we've just started this mission to go out to the world, and my biggest calling is to influence leaders, to help the leaders create more prosperous business by bearing fruit. Everything they do is here to bear fruit, not to take from people. That's what their mission was always about. Their mission was always about creating that. They've been given that seed, that frequency, to create amazing architecture here on earth. But that architecture was about giving, was about creating fruit for people, inspirational things, not to take from people. So we can imagine what we can do by really becoming aligned. So instead of cursing our leaders, instead of putting bad resonance to our leaders, that's not God's architecture to do that. What if we can all start resonating from divine architecture, and that make our frequencies so powerful that people have to notice. Leaders have to notice. They can feel it. They're resonating with it. The more people work through God's architecture and God's resonance, the more that's going to take over the world. Not by force, by love. This is what I mean by love. It doesn't come by force. It comes from resonance. It comes from purity. Okay? God bless. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful day, and love to see you on the next one. Please invite friends. I love this message to go global. We need more people. Okay, we need more people. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.